Welcome back, everybody. We're diving into the Dallas Cowboys today and really their outlook for the 2025 season, looking at their quarterback situation, their chances of contending. Uh, it's a hot topic, a lot to unpack. And as always, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you are enjoying this breakdown.
Yeah, the Cowboys are always a team that generates a lot of buzz, and this year is no different. I mean, coming off of their 2024 performance, a lot of people are wondering what the future holds. And one analyst, Dan Orlovsky, actually went so far as to say that their chances in 2025 are bleak. Bleak. And he's pointing to their salary cap situation as kind of the main culprit, saying that Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, and Micah Parsons will command over half of the team's cap space.
Wow. So is he being overly pessimistic, or are the Cowboys truly kind of facing this financial straitjacket? I mean, those are undeniable assets, but can a top-heavy payroll really contend in today's NFL?
It's a really good question. And, it's kind of a fascinating dilemma because on one hand, you need elite talent to win in this league. But the Cowboys situation really does highlight the challenges of trying to build a well-rounded roster when you're dealing with the salary cap. Because when you have these massive contracts for Prescott, Lamb, and Parsons, it really limits your flexibility to address other needs on the roster.
Let's break down those needs specifically. We know the Cowboys' offensive line, once their dominant force, has kind of shown signs of decline. And then beyond CeeDee Lamb, there's a lack of proven playmakers, and their run game last season was anemic, to say the least. They were sixth last in the league.
Yeah, those are major weaknesses. When you look at the offensive line decline, it really makes you wonder, is it age? Is it injuries? Is it personnel decisions? I mean, regardless, it puts a ton of pressure on Dak Prescott to really carry this offense. And while CeeDee Lamb is an exceptional receiver, if you don't have other threats, opposing defenses can just key on him all game.
So it seems their offensive struggles are kind of multifaceted. And then there's this looming question of the contract extensions. We know Micah Parsons is due for a massive payday. How does that further complicate their salary cap situation?
It's going to be a major challenge for the Cowboys. I mean, Parsons is an absolute game changer on defense. He's set to become a free agent in 2026, so that adds a whole other layer of complexity to their cap situation. They're really going to have to get creative if they want to manage all those contracts and fill the gaps in the roster.
So what are their options? I mean, they're heading into the 2025 draft with the 12th overall pick. Could they find like a diamond in the rough there that would bolster the run game, or do they prioritize shoring up the offensive line to protect Prescott?
The draft is going to be crucial, but it's a tough balancing act. I mean, you look at a guy like Ashton Jeanty, the running back out of Boise State. He's a really interesting prospect.
Right.
Could he come in and be a difference maker? Potentially. But is using a high draft pick on a running back when you have other needs, a luxury that they can't afford.
Especially when you consider a guy like Josh Connerly Jr., the offensive lineman out of Oregon. He could be that anchor they need to stabilize the offensive line for years to come.
Yeah, Connerly's a really interesting prospect as well. And, drafting him would signal a commitment to building from the trenches outwards, which is usually the foundation of successful teams in the NFL.
And that's a tough decision because it kind of highlights the larger challenge the Cowboys are facing. Can they build a truly balanced roster with their current financial constraints, or will they be forced to prioritize star power over depth?
That's the million-dollar question. There's no easy answer. It's about striking a delicate balance. You have to reward your star players, but you also have to maintain the flexibility to fill the gaps in the roster. It's a high-stakes game of chess, and every decision they make is going to have consequences.
It seems like they're walking a tightrope. They have talent, they can compete, but this salary cap situation creates a real sense of fragility. I mean, what happens if one of their key players goes down with an injury?
That's the risk you run when you have a top-heavy payroll. They're banking on their stars staying healthy, and if that happens, they have the potential to be dominant. But if that injury bug hits, the lack of depth could really unravel their season.
That's a gamble for sure. And I guess it makes their coaching staff even more important. I mean, how much of an impact can Brian Schottenheimer, the new offensive coordinator, have on this upcoming season? Can he really maximize the talent that they have? Can he mask some of their weaknesses?
Well, Schottenheimer's arrival is a fascinating subplot. He has NFL experience, but his track record recently has been kind of mixed. So it'll be interesting to see how he adapts his offensive philosophy to fit Dak Prescott's strengths and the personnel that the Cowboys have.
And his success is really going to depend on his ability to get the most out of this offense, right? Can he establish a consistent run game? Can he create opportunities for other players to shine besides CeeDee Lamb?
Those are really the key questions. If he can unlock this offense's potential, it could be a special year for the Cowboys. But if he struggles, we could see those offensive struggles from last season resurface, and that's going to put even more pressure on Dak Prescott and the defense.
So the stakes are high, the outcome is uncertain. And I guess this is where it gets really interesting, right? We've talked about the financial limitations, the draft possibilities, the importance of coaching. But what about the defense? Can they really shoulder the burden if this offense sputters?
The defense is a crucial piece of the puzzle. They have a superstar in Micah Parsons, but they've struggled with consistency and depth. To be true contenders, this defense needs to go from good to great. They need to be creating turnovers, limiting big plays, becoming a truly suffocating unit.
So it's not just about outscoring opponents, it's about playing complementary football, right?
Exactly. The offense needs to hold up their end of the bargain, but the defense has to be dominant. It has to be a team effort, and the Cowboys have the pieces. But it all comes down to maximizing their potential, minimizing their weaknesses, and finding that balance between star power and overall roster depth.
It's a complex equation, and it seems like the solution is still kind of elusive. We're going to have to wait and see how it all plays out on the field. But for all of you watching, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're finding this breakdown insightful.
Well, the Cowboys' path to contention doesn't just depend on their own roster and coaching, right? They also have to navigate the competitive landscape of the NFC.
Right, absolutely. So let's talk about that. Who are some of the heavyweights they need to be wary of in 2025? Who poses the biggest threat?
Well, you always have to start with the San Francisco 49ers. They're a perennial contender. Even with all their quarterback changes lately, they just find ways to win. Strong defense, creative offense, and they always seem to make the big plays when it matters most.
Yeah, the 49ers, you can never count them out. They have that winning tradition, and they just reload year after year. Who else is in the mix?
The Philadelphia Eagles are another team to watch. They've been a force in the NFC East. They have a young and talented roster. Jalen Hurts at quarterback keeps getting better, and their defense is always tough to play against.
The Eagles, yeah, they're formidable, especially within the division. And of course, that rivalry with the Cowboys always adds another layer of intensity. Any other teams out there lurking in the shadows, ready to make a move?
I think you got to look at the Minnesota Vikings. They've got that high-powered offense with Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson, arguably the best wide receiver duo in the league. If their defense can find some consistency, they could be a dangerous team come playoff time.
Yeah, the Vikings certainly have the firepower to put up points against anyone. If they can shore up that defense, they're definitely a legitimate contender. So it's a mix of established powers like the 49ers and Eagles and up-and-coming teams like the Vikings. Sounds like the NFC is shaping up to be a real dogfight. So how do the Cowboys measure up against these contenders? Where do they have the edge and where do they need to improve?
Well, offensively, I think the Cowboys have the weapons to compete with anyone. Dak Prescott, when healthy, is a top-tier quarterback. You've got CeeDee Lamb, a game-changing receiver. If their offensive line can protect Prescott and they can establish a run game, they can score on anyone.
But as we talked about earlier, that offensive line is a concern, and they don't have many proven playmakers beyond CeeDee Lamb. Can they diversify their attack? Can they keep defenses guessing? And how does their defense stack up against these offensive juggernauts?
Defensively, the potential is there to be elite. You got Micah Parsons, a disruptive force, but they need more consistency and depth to really reach their full potential. They can't give up big plays or let opposing offenses control the tempo of the game.
So they need to generate turnovers, get to the quarterback, make things difficult for the opposing offense. It sounds like the Cowboys have the pieces, but they need to execute at a high level and avoid those costly mistakes if they want to beat these NFC powerhouses.
Absolutely. It comes down to playing smart, disciplined football. It's a gauntlet. Every game is a battle. There's no room for error in the NFC.
The Cowboys have a history of rising to the occasion, but they'll need to be at their best week in and week out to overcome this challenging landscape. We've talked about their chances in 2025, but what about their long-term outlook? Can they sustain success with their current roster construction and salary cap situation?
That's the big question, isn't it? Building a championship team in the NFL is all about balance, talent, depth, and financial flexibility. They've invested heavily in their star players, but can they build a true contender around them?
It's a constant challenge for front offices, right? Balancing star power with depth and being financially responsible.
Yeah.
How can the Cowboys navigate those complexities and build for the future?
Well, drafting well is essential. They need to find those young, talented players on rookie contracts to stay competitive while managing the salary cap. And they're going to have to make some tough decisions when it comes to contract extensions.
They got some key players coming up on those deals. Prescott, Lamb, Parsons. They'll have to figure out who to prioritize and who they might have to let go if they can't fit everyone under the cap.
That's the tough part of the business. Sometimes you have to make difficult decisions to keep the franchise healthy in the long run. It's about finding that balance between rewarding your stars and having the flexibility to build a sustainable contender.
It's a high-stakes balancing act for sure. But the Cowboys have a talented front office. They have a history of making those tough calls. Their future depends on their ability to manage that salary cap effectively and make smart personnel decisions.
The pressure is on, but they have the resources and the experience to handle these challenges. It'll be interesting to see how they approach the draft, free agency, and those contract negotiations in the next few years.
It's a dynamic process for sure. It's constantly evolving. We've analyzed their strengths, weaknesses, the competition they face, and how they're building the roster. But there's one more thing to consider, right? What about the X factor? What are those intangible qualities that could make or break their season?
The X factor, it's often the difference between a good team and a great team. It's what elevates a team to championship contender. For the Cowboys, I think it comes down to leadership and chemistry. They've got a lot of big personalities on that roster. It's crucial that they come together as a unit.
It's more than just talent, right? It's about having the right mindset, the right attitude, the ability to rally around a common goal. It's about building a culture of accountability and a winning environment.
The coaching staff plays a huge role in shaping that culture. They need to create a positive and supportive environment where players feel empowered to lead and hold each other accountable.
It's about establishing a winning mentality. Every player committed to excellence, putting the team's goals ahead of individual accolades. Can the Cowboys cultivate that kind of team spirit?
That remains to be seen. But if they can harness the power of leadership, chemistry, and a shared commitment to winning, they can be a force to be reckoned with. The X factor is that unpredictable element that can change the momentum of a game, a season. It's the heart and soul of a team. It can be the difference between falling short and achieving greatness.
The Cowboys have the potential, but it's up to them to unlock it. We'll be watching closely to see if they can find that X factor and take their game to the next level.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground with the Cowboys. We talked about the roster, the salary cap, the competition they face, and even those intangible qualities like leadership and chemistry. Now let's shift gears a bit. Let's have some fun and speculate a little. Who are some potential breakout players on this roster who could surprise us and exceed expectations in 2025?
Yeah, the Cowboys have a good mix of those established stars and some promising young talent.
Yeah.
Which players are you keeping an eye on specifically? Who do you think is poised for a breakout year?
Well, one guy who comes to mind is Jake Ferguson, the tight end. He showed some flashes last season, and with Dalton Schultz gone, he's in line for a much bigger role.
Yeah, Ferguson has the athleticism, the receiving skills to be a real mismatch for defenses. If he can develop that consistency and build a strong connection with Prescott, he can become a real go-to target in that passing game.
No doubt about it. And on the defensive side of the ball, keep an eye on Sam Williams, the defensive end. Incredible athlete, natural pass rusher. If he can stay healthy and refine his technique, he could be a disruptive force off the edge.
Williams has that potential to be a game wrecker, and with Parsons demanding so much attention, he could see some favorable matchups and really make an impact.
Yeah, and you can never underestimate the importance of a strong pass rush. Disrupting the quarterback, creating turnovers, it takes a lot of pressure off your secondary.
And speaking of the secondary, I'm really intrigued by Deron Bland, the cornerback. Solid rookie year, and now with a year of experience under his belt, he could really take a big step forward.
Absolutely. His development is huge for the Cowboys defense. If he can emerge as that shutdown corner opposite Trayvon Diggs, they'll have a very formidable secondary, one that can match up with any passing attack in the league.
So we've got some exciting young players to watch for sure. Now let's have some fun with some bold predictions. What's your hot take for the Cowboys in 2025?
All right, bold prediction. I think the Cowboys win the NFC East, but they fall short of the Super Bowl. They have the talent to compete with anyone, but the salary cap limitations and those lingering question marks will ultimately hold them back.
Okay, that's a bold prediction, but not entirely unreasonable. They could make a deep playoff run, but yeah, the NFC is loaded. It's a tough road.
For sure. The margin for error is so small in the NFC. To make it to the Super Bowl, they need everything to go right.
All right, what's your other bold prediction?
Dak Prescott has a bounce-back year, throws for over 4,500 yards. He's battled some injuries, but when healthy, he's shown he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league.
Prescott's health is huge for this team. If he can stay on the field and get back to form, this offense could be explosive.
And with a potentially improved offensive line, a talented group of receivers, and a new offensive coordinator, the pieces are there for Prescott to have a huge year.
All right, well, it's shaping up to be an exciting and unpredictable season for the Cowboys. They have the veteran leadership, the young talent, a new coaching staff. Their journey is going to be filled with challenges and opportunities. Can they overcome those obstacles, maximize their potential, and make a run at a championship?
Well, the NFL season is a marathon, not a sprint. The Cowboys' success will depend on staying healthy, executing at a high level, well and making those adjustments along the way. It's going to be a fun one to follow for sure.
Well, that's about it for our deep dive into the Dallas Cowboys and their 2025 outlook. We've covered a lot: strengths, weaknesses, potential breakout players, and even made some bold predictions.
It's been great breaking it all down with you. Now it's up to the Cowboys to go out there and prove us right or wrong.
That's right. The NFL season is always full of surprises. We can't wait to see how it unfolds. For everyone watching, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more of these breakdowns and football discussions.
Thanks for joining us, and be sure to keep that conversation going in the comments below.
We'll see you next time.